Hello everybody and welcome to my first YouTube video. My name is Adrian and in today's video we are looking into the capabilities of AI Builder and how it can help us to unify data entries. Doesn't matter if they are coming from your ERP system, CRM, from an Excel file, or maybe even from your Copilot, you can use AI Builder to unify those data entries. And that's what we're going to check out today. Therefore, I prepared a short use case for today. So just imagine marketing employees write down important measurements for campaigns, but they do so in different formats, which makes it hard to analyze and use the data. So the goal is to make sure all nodes follow the same structure so they are easier to track and report them. So, normally you get only, for example, a guideline, how you write your description, but if there are not certain fields which you need to fill, every user gets a bit creative how they write it, which makes it very bad to use the data further and analyze it. So as an example, we have here 3 different nodes. For example, the one is starting with focus on Instagram and TikToks with an influencer endorsement for a new skincare product. The other one is starting with radio and flyers are the focus here. Messaging is all about community outreach for a new service available in the area with the slogan, a new solution for your needs. And the last one is starting with website and paid socials will be the main channels. The focus is on year-end clearance sale, especially for high demand items. So if you read carefully through all those 3 examples, you will see that they're all a bit different written from different persons in a different style. So we want to make sure that we're gonna unify all of them, and that is basically where AI Builder will come into place for us. So next we are going into make.powerapps.com and more specific into the AI hub of the Power Platform. So if you don't see it here on the left one, you can see under more here, it will appear in one of these options here, and then you can make sure that you select AI hub. And within the AI hub, you have now the possibility to create your own custom prompt. So therefore, we can basically click here on prompts and we can go here on build your prompt. And we can give our prompt a name. For example, unifying marketing description. And now you have the possibility, like you know it from, for example, ChatGPT, you can write a prompt here. And the beauty of it is you have the possibility to specify an input here. So we can say we want one input of type text, which is our marketing description or our marketing note. And now you have the possibility to also specify sample data, which you're going to use, so that the LLM will know which data it can expect. So we can paste here one of our sample description data, for example, the first one from our use case. And now we have specified our input, which we have here. So as the next step, we need to write the prompt which we want to have. So therefore we can say, for example, you receive as an input an unstructured marketing note description. And now we can specify the input parameter which it should use in that prompt. So in that case, we can reference here now to the marketing note, which we just defined before that. Make sure you bring it into a structured output format. So now we haven't specified any output format. So therefore you have the possibility on the right here to also specify an output. So we can either get it as text, So if you remember, for example, from ChatGPT, you always get a written text most of the times as an output. So a text has the problem that it leaves room for interpretation with the LLM. So as a second option, you have the possibility to specify a JSON here. So a JSON, for those of you who don't know, is basically a structured object which always contains the same information. So you can have different properties in there, and that is what we're gonna create now together with the help of ChatGPT. As next step, we can build our JSON structure. We can do that by leveraging ChatGPT or Copilot. In my case, I'm going to use Copilot. And we can specify a prompt, for example, transform these descriptions. Then we're going to paste the descriptions from our use case, so the different nodes which we have. And we want to have them into a generic JSON without using any arrays. So let's submit the prompt and let's see what we get back. So we can see now we have now a JSON which is specified with different properties. So basically in orange you can see those are the properties. But what we want to achieve is that we get always back the same format. So we basically need to ask it to have always the same properties. Use for every JSON record the same properties. And now we can see that it's using for every campaign which we have here always the same structure. The only thing what we still have is basically we have campaign 1, campaign 2, campaign 3. That's something what we don't want, because we basically want that we can input one description and it basically returns us with those specific properties. So therefore we're gonna grab only this generic part here, and we can go back to the AI Hub. We can click here on edit next to the JSON and we can paste it here. Once we have done that, if you have here an error message, then you basically still don't have the right JSON format and you need to modify it further. But in our case, the JSON format is right. So we can hit apply here and we can save our custom prompt. So what we did now is we are getting an input as a plain text and we get an output in a JSON object. And the JSON object is basically the output format which we just specified in here. So therefore, let's test that prompt. For the testing of the prompt, it's using the sample data. And now you can see it comes out as a JSON object with the focus, the channel, the product service, etc. So if we switch this output here back to text, and we're gonna save this custom prompt again, and we can test it again now, you will see that you will not get it in this structured output. So if we test our prompt now, you can see that it's coming up with a plain text. And probably you have used ChatGPT multiple times. It can differ every time when you basically submit it to the LLM. So with that JSON, we are basically forcing it to always give us back the same properties. We're gonna change it back to the JSON. We have still our format saved here, and we can hit save custom prompt, and now our JSON output format is saved. But how can we make use of this now in a dynamic way? Because we don't want to go every time back into our AI builder prompts here and basically get a JSON object where no one can do anything with it. So one possibility therefore is to integrate it into a Power Automate flow. So therefore you can go here on flows, and if you are familiar with Power Automate flows, it's just simply creating a flow and making use of this AI Builder prompt in there. So I'm gonna make it now as an instant cloud flow. You can also make it scheduled, or you can use whatever trigger you want, but for this demo we're gonna go ahead with a manual trigger. And as the data source where we get our data from, we're gonna use an Excel file. So your data source where it can come from can also be the ERP system, it can be a CRM system, it can be an email, depending on where you get that information from. This is very individual to your specific use case. Let's check out our Excel file before we're gonna integrate it. So important is that an Excel file is always formatted as a table. You can see that when you click on it and here your table design opens. And then you can see in the left corner here the table name. So we have here our node numbers and our 3 node descriptions. So let's return to our Power Automate flow, and we're gonna integrate it with Excel. You can see in here we have Excel Online Business, and there's an action called list rows present in the table, which basically returns us all the rows which are in a specific table in here. So we can specify our location here. We have here our Copilot testing. We can specify the document library which we want to use and the file which we want to extract our data from. So we have here our marketing description notes. That's the file which I just showed you. And now it should also show us the available tables in this specific Excel file. So now that we have our data in here, we can basically go through the different rows and transform the marketing text from there with the help of our AI Builder prompt. So how do we going to do that? We first basically need to alter through the different rows. So we have 3 different rows as you have seen. So we need the action apply to each. So apply to each basically allows us to perform an action for every row which we have in that table. So as an input, we're going to use all the different items which we're going to get back from our list rows present in the table. You can do that by selecting the values, and then you can reference always to the record in here. So as a second action then, we need now to use our AI Builder action to transform the description input from our list rows present in the table. So therefore we can click here on our AI Builder, and we're going to use the action create text with GPT using a prompt. So once we do that, it's building up the connection reference in the background, and we get asked to specify here our prompt. So you can see now here we have our unifying marketing description, and we can select this specific prompt, and we can see now it pops up here with our input field, the marketing node. So our input field, if you remember, was basically the plain text which we had as the input to get back our structured JSON. So what we can do now here is we can basically reference here to the specific node description. That's what we're gonna do. And now let's hit save. So our progress is safe in the Power Automate flow. And you will always get a warning here that you don't have an approval workflow. That's with all the AI Builder actions. It recommends basically that you build an approval step in here so that all AI generated content will be reviewed before it gets published into any other application. For the testing, we're not going to do that. However, it's still recommended if you're building production ready applications. So therefore, let's bring it to the test. We can hit manually and can click here on test. It's now loading and signing in. And we can click here on continue and run our flow. So our flow is running now, and let's see what we get back for our descriptions now. So now we can see our flow ran successfully. If we click now in apply to each, we can see that it altered through 3 different records. If we click here now on our text, then we can see that it's coming back now with a structured JSON every time. Let's click on the second record. You can see this is based on the second description we provided. And if we click on the third record, we can see that it's getting a third record. So what it did, it took the plain text which it got from the Excel file and is basically with the create text with GPT using a prompt action, mapping it into the JSON structure which we specified. And therefore you're ensuring that you every time get the same output type of data back from your LLM. So you can basically reuse that further now and, for example, update it back into our Excel file. Now that we are always getting back our JSON, we want to update that structured data also into our Excel file, for example. So therefore, let's go back to our Excel file and we can add a column now. For example, JSON. So now we have a new column which we want to update. So therefore we are going back to our Power Automate flow and we are adding another action for Excel Online. So we can click here on update a row. So we are basically got our data from our Excel file. We are transforming it with our GPT prompt and we're gonna update it back into our Excel file. So therefore we're gonna link it to the same Excel file where we're getting the data from. So you're clicking here again through the different file paths to link it to your specific file. To my marketing description nodes, you're going to specify also again the table. You also need to specify a key column. So that is basically what is the unique identifier. If we're looking back into my file, we have the node number here, node 1, node 2, node 3. So we can specify that the node number field is our specific key column. And we can link this one to the node number. So basically what it will do now, it will check, okay, where is node 1? And in that row, it will then update that specific JSON column. So therefore, I can now update my JSON column. And if you remember from our create text with GPT using a prompt, in our text property, we always got back our text. So let's select that one and we can basically give it a test again. And once that's run, our new column, the JSON column, should be updated with the JSON structure which is generated from our GPT prompt. So now we can see it ran successful. Let's get back and we can see now here it updated our column with our JSON object. So one of the issues with that is basically this is a very development experience how you see that JSON, right? So normally you would have different fields which you want to update. For example, focus would be its own field, channel, product, service, slogan, and the other fields. So therefore, let's add those fields actually into the table and update them based on our JSON response. So let's introduce column for focus, for channel, and for product service. So in theory, you can add all of the columns here which are in the JSON, but basically you will get the idea how you can map those fields within Power Automate. Now let's get back into Power Automate and map those specific fields to our GPT outputs. So therefore we are going back here on Edit, and you can see now that these specific fields are not showing up yet. So therefore you have to refresh your Power Automate flow so it's fetching the new columns which you just added. So we can click here again on Edit. If we click now on Update the Row, we can see now the new columns which have been added from us in our Excel file. So besides the text, we can now click here on Focus, and we can see already here it shows us focus as an output. Same goes also for the channel and for product service. So now we mapped all of those fields to the columns in our Excel file, and we can run the Power Automate flow one more time to also update those fields now. And once the flow is run, we can go back to our Excel file and check that out. So we see that ran successfully. And when we go back now, we can see that it updated also those specific fields. So now you have your data in a structured format updated back into your Excel file. So you can use it, for example, for analytics now. You can also filter on your rows, etc. So you don't have to do it in Excel. You can also do it in any other format or in any other source system and target system which you want to use. That can be, for example, in SharePoint, it can be your database table. You can integrate it into your CRM. There are basically endless possibilities. So Excel is only one of the easiest way how to do it. However, you can see with getting this JSON object, you always get the same structured output from your GPT model every time, and you don't have unpredictable text outcomes which you are getting back from it. I hope you learned something in that video today. If yes, give it a thumbs up, or also leave your comments if you have any questions, and see you next time. Bye bye.